Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hit the Green podcast, or I guess for you potentially new viewers out there, welcome, viewers and new viewers and listeners to the Hit the Green podcast. Uh, Happy to be back for another week of golf. Again, with the shortage of sports we have nowadays, pretty awesome to have the PGA Tour to lean on, and we've been having some hell golf tournaments here recently. Um, Another great finish here last week at the Memorial. Jack really had that course playing super difficult, which he was really proud of. So yeah, it was a special weekend at Jack's place. Again, it was unique last week that we were at Muirfield Village back-to-back weeks, and it presented us a really unique opportunity. Didn't necessarily take as much advantage of that as we would have liked to. It was a very, very difficult week this week at Memorial. So we saw a lot of big names really struggle. And in that vein, the Millionaire Maker tournament was absolutely crazy. But actually, today I wanted to start with some exciting news for us here at HTG Pod. We actually developed a new partnership. I've actually been playing on this platform for the last couple of weeks, just seeing what it's about, and I had a lot of fun playing it the last couple of weeks, both at the Memorial as well as at the Workday Charity. It's Thrive Fantasy, and Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy sports and esports app for player props. So a little bit of a different structure than those traditional fantasy sites and daily fantasy sites that you'll play on have. So at Thrive, they've really just eliminated the need to do as much research as you would need to do for a typical slate on some of these other daily fantasy sites. And the reason they did that was to level the playing field, right? A lot of these professionals, and this is why I made this podcast, right, to help level the playing field for the casual players. A lot of the professionals are looking at a lot of information and data that, while it is available to the public, is not readily available and takes a lot of time to parse through and make sense of, right? So at Thrive Fantasy, what they're doing is they have a player prop style esports and fantasy sports app. For PGA, you'll have 10 prop bets. You'll be able to select 5 out of those 10 bets that are available. And each of those prop bets has a fantasy point total associated with it. So if the over is more likely to occur, you will get fewer points for that than you would for the under, which is less likely to occur. So you get more points based on the risk level you're willing to take on each prop. And the great thing about this is the props involve players that you're likely to see on the national broadcast, on the television broadcast, right? I think some of our frustration sometimes with trying to follow our lineups is that we have some players that, while us in the DFS space, in the PGA DFS space, they're very important to us. They're not so much, household names. So you don't have to worry about being able to really follow your plays because the props that are offered are on the top-notch players that you'll likely see on the television broadcast anyway. And ultimately, what you want to do is you want to rack up the most points. And it's a very interesting game because you have to decide, whether it's worth taking a risk on an event that has a less likely outcome, or whether you want to play it, a little more safe and take maybe 5 props that have a safer outcome. So a really, really unique structure, something that I definitely recommend you try out. And having it explained to me, I wasn't sure how much I would enjoy the play, but I'll tell you what, I had a great time these last couple weeks playing. So head on over and download Thrive Fantasy. You can download it on the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, or you can go ahead and visit their website and play there at www.thrivefantasy.com. If you go ahead and use the promo code HTGPod, again, the promo code is HTGPod. You'll go ahead and you'll get a $20 match on your first deposit of $20 or more. So make sure if you do have some interest in playing Thrive Fantasy that you use that promo code HTGPod to get your $20 match on your first deposit of $20 or more. And I definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're someone that doesn't have much time to put into research in these, large daily fantasy slates for PGA. Or maybe if you don't have the time to watch the HTG pod, watch our video for the week. Thrive is a good way to go ahead and still get your daily fantasy exposure, but the research that you weren't able to do doesn't leave you at much of a disadvantage like it would on other sites. So certainly check out those folks at Thrive. We're excited to be partnering with them here at HTG Pod, and I'll be playing myself. I'll continue to play myself on that website week in and week out. Okay, now that we have that promo done with, we can get into the good stuff, which is what we're smoking. So today I cheated a little bit and went with a pre-roll. Came highly recommended. The grower is Jetpacks. The strain is Tangie, and Tangie is an interesting one. It's a sativa dominant hybrid, like 3/4 sativa, I would say, 1/4 indica as far as the hybrid makeup is concerned. And it's an homage to the famous strain Tangerine Dream. So if any of you OG old head smokers used to smoke Tangerine Dream, the Tangie is an homage to that strain. It's really like a millennial version of that, right? And by millennial version, I mean it's testing way higher in THC than you guys were smoking back in the days, any of you old heads that are watching. So this Tangie is testing at 28.29% THC. So it should be a doozy. So excited to smoke this today and get into the memorial recap after we go ahead and spark this puppy up. And again, it was a difficult memorial from a Draftkings standpoint, but I think that was the case for the entire field. And when we have these tournaments where top-notch players are well over par, it really sort of played in some respects, especially over the weekend, similarly to a U.S. Open. So in those respects, we didn't necessarily have the correct statistics that we were looking at, because Jack really was able to make that course play so much more difficult. But let's get into this smoke really quickly. I'll let you know how it's smoking. And I have matches today. I realized that my lighter's out of juice. I need to get a new one. And we are underway. We are underway. So with that, let's get right into it. Let's get into the memorial recap. I mentioned on last week's episode, Jon Rahm was disrespectfully priced all the way down at $9,300. I mean, coming into the event as the second player in the world, it really was, a slap in the face as far as pricing was concerned. And we, along with a lot of other members of the field, identified that as a complete mispricing. Rahm played phenomenally last week. I mean, this guy is someone who's just severely underrated. I'm not sure if similarly to, like a Tommy Fleetwood or something, and Fleetwood even more is a more popular player here in the States, so maybe not a good comparison to Fleetwood, but for some reason, I just don't think people understand how unbelievable Jon Rahm is and has been. I mentioned last week, the course history wasn't great, but the player is. And what I was speaking to when I was saying that Jon Rahm is a great player, let's look at this statistic. So in his first 100 events that count toward the official World Golf Rankings, Rahm has 10 wins, 24 top threes, 37 top fives, 50 top tens. Half of those events he's come in the top 10, which is absurd, and only 12 missed cuts. All of those statistics put him second to the one and only, the GOAT, Tiger Woods, in all of those statistical categories for the first 100 measured events that count toward the official World Golf Rankings. So I hope that puts it into perspective a little bit, just what I meant when I said that it was a disrespectful pricing on Rahm. And he went out and showed why it was a disrespectful pricing. And it seemed like he took some he wasn't too pleased with the fact that I think he's being overlooked a bit now. And now that he's vaulted to number one in the world with the win, I don't think too many people are going to be overlooking Jon Rahm for too much longer. I wouldn't be surprised to see him hold this world number one ranking for quite some time. The only player that I really see pressing him in the near future is Rory, who is now the world number two. And Rory, while churning out decent results for any regular PGA Tour pro, just quite hasn't been Rory McIlroy as of late. We'll see if he can return to better form, that form that brought him to number one in the world. But Rahm is really not showing any signs of slowing down. And we own plenty of them this week in DraftKings. We did identify him as a massively mispriced player. it was just a very difficult week to get 6 out of 6 players through. And even if you did, it might not have helped you. I mean, there were guys that literally lost DraftKings points over the weekend with the way that they had Muirfield Village set up this weekend. So, yeah, you saw plenty of scores in the high 70s and in the 80s over the weekend for sure, which is always fun for us amateur golfers to see, watching the pros struggle. So that was a good time. But yeah, it was not a great week for the Millionaire Maker. We faded Jason Day again. He's becoming the bane of our existence here at the HTG Pod. A T4 for Day. Gained again, tee to green, another 6 strokes gain tee to green, and the putter's heating up. He gained over 3 strokes putting, and we know that Jason Day, possibly the world's best putter, and when the putter's hot, it's not even close. So Day is going to be someone that we're going to have to keep an eye on moving forward because he's really rounding into form, and I'm going to be interested to see the next time he shows up in an event where DraftKings prices him and what his ownership comes in at. As far as the Millie Maker recap goes, we kind of covered it already. Brutal tournament. We had some good plays, and particularly in identifying Rahm as being underpriced, but couldn't get any lineups to go 6 for 6 through the cut, which is pretty phenomenal. Like phenomenally bad, phenomenal in a bad sense. But hey, it happens sometimes. It was one of those events where had I anticipated that it was going to play as difficult as it did, would have taken a little bit more of an ownership stand as far as taking players that were just lower owned, because when a golf course gets that difficult and can jump up and grab you at any moment like that, ownership fades become much more viable because anyone's liable to take a huge score on any given hole. So looking back on this, and I'm not sure how much it'll apply to next year's Memorial, but making notes, I've noted that, potentially this is a golf course that they can set up to be very difficult, a golf course that can play similarly to a U.S. Open, as we saw this week. So something not to sleep on for future Memorial tournaments, that they can set this thing up to play very difficult and almost to -9 won the tournament for Rahm, but you didn't see too many players under par, I'll tell you that much, in this field, and it was a stacked field as well. So they can really make that course play to even par being a great score. So something to keep in mind moving forward. Max Homa is killing me, and we're going to like him again this week because I guess I'm crazy. But he missed the cut by 1 shot once again. Posted 2 under on his Thursday round, which was a great start, and then just imploded on Friday, especially down the stretch. It's discouraging for sure. And Homa's cost us a lot of money over these last few weeks, over these last 3 weeks. But guys, just stick with it. Stay on the bandwagon. The ball striking was there again for this guy. I mean, eventually it has to happen. And we don't want to get ourselves in a Jason Day situation where we hop off at the wrong time. But it is going to happen for Homa. And if the ball striking numbers start to fall off, then I'll stop touting him as a play, of course. But they're still there, right? And it's just this guy around the green and on the green needs to figure it out. And if he does, he's going to pay us. He's going to pay off in spades. So we will be going back to Homa again, even though another frustrating miscut, missing that cut by 1 shot once again last week. And each time he's missed the cut that we've touted him, he's missed it by that single shot. So see if we can get Homa going this week. Another thing I wanted to mention in recapping the Millionaire Maker, the winning lineup as far as lineup construction is concerned: 2 players in the $9,000 range, 3 players in the $8,000 range, and then 1 player in that low $7,000 range. So as far as the construction we liked went, we liked sticking to that 9K and 8K range as much as you can. As you see, that was the construction that ended up winning it. So it wasn't all bad as far as our analysis was concerned. We did a good job in some spots, roster construction particularly. But man, we just had a lot of top-notch players, top-tier plays miss the cut. A lot of very, very good players, and that's kudos to Jack and the tournament committee at the Memorial for really making this golf course a different golf course through the pin positions, through the green speeds, how hard those greens got. They seemed very baked out over the weekend, weren't as receptive to those iron shots as we saw they were in the workday. So yeah, kudos to Jack and the Memorial tournament committee for really giving us a different golf tournament, even though we saw the same venue being played. So it was a lot of fun to see. And I'll look forward to seeing what the PGA Tour schedule looks like next year. I highly doubt that they run those events back to back again, both at Muirfield. I believe Workday was filling in for the John Deere, so we'll see what happens next year. But it was an interesting opportunity to at least give it a shot this year. And yeah, as far as the Memorial goes, that's all I want to hear about it for a while, because we got our asses handed to us at Memorial. So we're moving on. We're moving on to brighter and better days. We're on to Minnesota and the 3M Open. First, let me get this thing relit. And again, I'm using matches, so you're going to have to bear with me here for a bit for me to get it relit. But once I do, really excited to talk 3M Open with you. I actually have a really reduced player pool this week. Normally I give you guys upwards into like that 30 player range. This week we've really reduced our player pool, so not as many decisions to make this week if you're just following our picks here at HTG Pod. If you're someone that sticks strictly to the picks we make, you're not gonna have too many options to decide between. So should be an easy week to come to decisions, unlike last week. And you'll notice a lot of things will be much different about this week than they were last week in the roster construction space, as well as the skill set we'll want to see around this course. Sometimes there's something really cool about using a match. I don't know, it just feels good. Ritualistically, just feels kind of cool. All right, 3M Open. As I mentioned, we're in Minnesota this week, playing TPC Twin Cities. It's in Blaine, Minnesota, just outside of Minneapolis. Course is a par 71, plays at 7,431 yards, and we're on bank greens this week. So it's an Arnold Palmer design. At a par 71, 7,431 yards is long. It's a pretty long golf course. We get 3 par 5s this week. We have 4 par 3s again this week. The par 5s will be reachable by the longer hitters in the field, certainly, but I think you'll see a lot of the shorter hitters in this field play them as 3-shot par 5s. The 4 par 3s are all in that 170 to like 190 yard range. So on fantasynational.com, actually, you can sort par 3s in certain yard ranges. One of those ranges is 175 to 200. So that's the par 3 range that we went ahead and targeted for the model this week. As far as the 3M's concerned, this is the second year that the event's been held. Last year's winner and defending champion was Matthew Wolff at -21. It was his first PGA Tour win, and it came about a month after he joined the tour, after he turned pro. So it's a phenomenal win for Wolff. I believe he was one of 3 players all time to have individually won a collegiate event, an NCAA event, as well as a PGA Tour event in the same year. So incredible achievement from Wolff last year, and clearly he likes it around this golf course. The golfer prototype that we're looking for, as far as statistics go, we're looking at strokes gained off the tee first and foremost. Seems to correlate best on this golf course. Again, this is the second time the event's been played, last year being the inaugural event, so we might see different skill sets emerge as we get more data for this event. But given what we have currently and taking a look at the golf course, and again, I mentioned that it's pretty long for a par 71. It would make sense that strokes gained off the tee would be something that would correlate to success here. As well as the next statistic we're looking at, which is driving distance, something we haven't looked at yet since, I've started this podcast at HTG Pod, but this week it looks like just being able to pump it out there is going to give you an advantage. There are going to be it has some bomb and gouge sort of feel to it, does TPC Twin Cities. So driving distance is actually something we're gonna take pretty seriously this week. And coupled with off the tee, you can tell what we're looking for here. We're looking for people that can drive the ball extremely well and gain a huge advantage over the field with their driver. We'll also be looking at strokes gained par fives, again, a statistic that has been sort of a mainstay in our model. And holes that people that win golf tournaments and perform well in golf tournaments usually have success on are the par fives. So we will keep that again this week. Birdies are better gained. We want to see players that can make lots of birdies. It's okay if you make a few bogeys, but at the end of the day, you have to get to around minus 20 to win this event, right? So you're going to have to rack up birdies in bunches to be a high DraftKings scorer this week. So birdies or better gained is a stat that we definitely want to look at. And for those of you that don't know what birdies or better gained are, it's essentially just a statistic that tells you how many birdies or eagles you are making more than the field average. We'll also be looking again at strokes gained tee to green, a statistic that is good for most golf tournaments, quite honestly. You want guys that are able to at least strike the ball well enough to give themselves a chance. We will be looking at the par 3 range, 175 to 200 yards, as I mentioned. And then finally, we'll be looking at strokes gained approach. But on the par 3 ranges and strokes gained approach, those are really just sprinkled into the model. They're not necessarily the major components of the model, which are strokes gained off the tee, driving distance, strokes gained par fives, birdies are better gained, and strokes gained tee to green. So with that being said, we'll get into our top shelf plays. And again, we don't have many players priced above $10,000, but something to note about this golf tournament, we are in a significantly weaker field than we've seen recently. And especially compared to last week, I mentioned that this is going to be drastically different, this video from last week's video, as far as who we like goes, as far as our strategy goes, I should say. And that's because, one, this field is insanely weak compared to last week. Let's see here. We have Bubba Watson at $9,900. Like, we were getting Patrick Cantlay at a cheaper price last week, right? Two, the golf course is significantly different from Muirfield, so we're gonna certainly want to target a completely different type of golfer. And three, we're gonna see a winning score somewhere around minus 20. And I just mentioned at Memorial last week, it sort of played like a U.S. Open, so it's going to be drastically different. We're not going to want to live in the ranges that I mentioned, the 9K and 8K range that we wanted to live in last week. We can certainly venture outside of that. And as we get into these top shelf plays, I think we almost need to grab one of these guys up top. So, and I let this damn thing go out again. It's all good. It's all good. We have a little more time this week to smoke. That's why I went with the matches and whatnot. Because the player pool is so small, it's so tight for us this week. I don't have as many players to talk to you guys about, so we'll keep the smoke stash a little longer this week. All right, our first top shelf play. Let's get into it. It is Dustin Johnson at $11,500. DJ is the highest priced player in the field, and it is justified. Shouldn't surprise you. So DJ ranks second in the custom model. He's 11th tee to green, second off the tee, 9th in driving distance, 13th in birdies or better gained in this field over the last 24 measured rounds per fantasynational.com. Yeah, and I mentioned we want guys that can take that driver and turn it into a weapon. That's DJ. Of course, didn't have a great week at Memorial, but that golf course ate a lot of people alive. There were just big numbers staring you in the face if you weren't pretty much perfect around that place last week. So not too concerned about that. He's shown good recent form, besides his performance at Memorial. So DJ, someone I absolutely love this week. He probably is long term. He's certainly the best driver of the golf ball in this field. He hasn't been as great as his baseline is lately. But, again, I'm not concerned about DJ as far as recent form goes. So at 17.4% projected ownership, the price is fair, the ownership's fair. If you're playing a couple of lineups, you got to grab either DJ or this next guy I'm going to talk about, because the win equity here at the top, in the $10,000 plus range, the win equity is insane. But even with just these top guys, I think the win equity is so much greater than these other guys below them, given how weak the field is. So DJ at 17.4% ownership. If you're playing only one lineup, yeah, I think you got to get DJ or this next guy, Brooks Koepka, at $11,200, 6.6% projected ownership. 6.6% in the field this week. Projected ownership on a guy like Brooks Koepka. Yeah, sign me up. Absolutely. Ranks 8th in our custom model, 30th tee to green. He's 11th off the tee. He's 4th birdies or better gained, and he's 15th in driving distance over the last 24 measured rounds. He came 65th in this tournament last year, but I'm not too concerned about tournament history here. The event's only happened once. It's crazy to me that Brooks is all the way down here at 6.6% projected ownership. I mean, the guys in the $10,000 range, I'm sure, are stealing that. And I think people are starting their lineups with one of those guys, or even maybe both of them, at the bottom 10,000s, and then going into the $8,000 range or the $9,000 range. I suspect that's what's happening, and that's why Brooks has 6.6% projected ownership. But we have to take this opportunity and pounce. Aside from DJ, I don't think anyone has as good of a chance to win this golf tournament as Brooks Koepka does. So at 6.6% projected ownership, you best believe I will own plenty of him this week, and I certainly think you should as well. So love Brooks, love DJ. I think starting your lineup with one of these guys, especially if you're starting your lineups with Brooks and that makes you contrarian, that's the way I'm going to go this week. Although I can't argue with the guys down here in the $10,000 range. They do rate out phenomenally in the model, and the ownership's following them. So the next top shelf play is Tony Finau at $10,300, 22.1% projected ownership. And we actually got a decently low-owned Finau last week. It came in a little north of 11% ownership. So we were able to get over the field. He performed well, except for on Sunday, of course, where he shot that 6 over. But that golf course was playing tough for everybody all weekend. And Tony, with the performance he had, was very, Finau-esque, right? He was able to make a lot of birdies, and he churned in a solid finish and didn't get the win. And that's basically what we know Tony Finau to be. But with DraftKings scoring being what we're looking for here, the $10,300 price tag is fair, even though I don't think Finau has a ton of win equity, given that he hasn't been able to post that win yet. At least he makes up for it by making tons of birdies and always being viable to make an eagle or two. So 22.1% is a bit high, but again, we're looking for people that can take advantage of this golf course with the driver, and Tony's really been cutting loose with that driver lately. Hit one over 400 yards last week at Memorial. So he's hard to ignore. So Tony Finau at $10,300, 22.1% projected ownership. I'll try to match the field, and I do like him this week. So the next player is Paul Casey at $10,100, 24.1% projected ownership, and he is the highest projected owned player on the slate at that 24.1%. And I get it. Of course, Casey ranks number 1 in our model, in our custom model. 7th tee to green. He's 6th on the par 5s, 5th off the tee, 15th in birdies or better gained, 33rd in driving distance. So even though he doesn't bomb it, the guy can still move it out there, and he's gaining in spades off the tee. I was hoping that the bad performance last week might sway some people, but it's not looking like it will. Man, Casey at this $10,100 price tag feels underpriced. He really does. It feels like he should be priced up with Finau, and not quite to a John Rahm level underpricing, because again, Rahm was being disrespected last week. This is still too cheap for Paul Casey, and significantly too cheap. And this is one of the unique situations where I might still go heavily overweight to the field on Casey, even though he's the highest projected player in the field. and hope that his ownership drops a bit as people think that he's too chalky. Because yeah, Casey should be up in that $10,900 price tag with Finau, and it's pretty surprising that we get an $800, in my opinion, discount on Casey this week. And even the player priced above him in Tommy Fleetwood at $10,500. I love Tommy Fleetwood. He's a fan favorite, and he's a phenomenal player. But really, how much win equity does Tommy Fleetwood have, given that he's never won over here on the PGA Tour? Paul Casey has done that multiple times. We haven't seen Fleetwood yet. This is his return, right, to golf, to professional golf, or competitive golf, I should say. So to get a $400 discount to Fleetwood and an $800 discount to Finau, to me justifies the high ownership on Casey. So I will still be heavy. Paul Casey will be my most owned player this week. I love the fit. If he shows up in decent form, then he will pay off this price tag. So absolutely love Casey at $10,100. We would love to see that ownership go down as the week continues, because stance here is firm. Casey at $10,100 is too cheap. And I wish I would have made this firm a stance on Rahm last week and really push that narrative to you guys last week, because in rewatching the video last week, I don't think I pushed it as hard as I could have. But this is similar to the Rahm situation last week, in that Casey is significantly underpriced, and he is the last top shelf play that I like this week. So only 4 of those guys that I want you to shoot after this week up top, and DJ, Brooks, Finau, and Casey. Really love starting lineups Brooks, Casey, because with Casey being the chalk, you can instantly get different by going with Brooks as well. So if you can start a lineup Brooks, Casey, and I'll let you know. If you go Brooks, Paul, Casey, let's see how much money that leaves you. And this is a week where we can dig into the 6K range for sure. Not like last week where we were very skeptical of pretty much everyone in that 6K range. We can go down into the 6K range for sure this week and not have to feel too uncomfortable. So yeah, that leaves you $7,175 per player, meaning you can take a couple guys in that $6,000 range that we like. And there's one player certainly that we like down in that mid $6,000 range. And if we add him to the lineup, yeah, we're already at $7,400 per golfer for our last 3 golfers, which is great. So you can definitely start lineups, Koepka, Casey, and still fill it with competent golfers that give us the upside to win the Millionaire Maker. And that's what we're here for, right? So our mid-shelf plays, those are $7,500 or more in DraftKings pricing. And the first mid-shelf play is an interesting one. It's Bubba Watson at $9,900. And Bubba ranks 17th in our custom model. He's 4th off the tee, 13th in driving distance, 36th in birdies or better gained. And Bubba is a guy who a golf course has to fit his eye, right? He's quote unquote an artist, right? Versus being a technician that we would say Bryson DeChambeau is. So Bubba, having not played this golf course before, I believe. Yes, he hasn't played before. It's going to be a total crapshoot. But if this is a golf course that fits Bubba's eye, then he's live to win this golf tournament for sure. We don't have to worry about driving distance with Bubba. He's probably going to gain off the tee. If these tee shots fit Bubba's eye, I want him on my roster. And man, it's going to be such a volatile play, because if it doesn't fit Bubba, then he is certainly going to miss the cut. So he's either, and at 13.1% projected ownership, I think you got to at least match the field if you can. I think if you're playing 3 lineups, he's worth taking a shot in one of them, because at $9,900, he could win this golf tournament. And man, it's so difficult. I wish Bubba Watson's a guy that you wish you had course history on. He's really a guy that you can rely on that course history with. So this week we're just going to kind of have to take a leap of faith and roster him, because we know what the upside is if this golf course is ultimately a fit for him. A guy who we know the golf course is a fit for and who I like again this week is Matthew Wolff at $9,700, your defending champion. Shot 21 under last year, coming in at 13.6% projected ownership. Yeah, I mean, Wolff bombs the ball, right? Bombs the ball, going to gain off the tee, probably going to gain tee to green. If the putter gets hot, don't see a reason why. It's repeat champions are rare. I think a couple of years ago we had like 3 events where we had repeat champs, defending champs, so defend their title, which is it's a pretty rare thing to do, but it happens, and it can happen. And Wolff fits this golf course, and we don't even necessarily need him to win at $9,700 because he's a guy similar to Finau, like akin to Finau. Wolff gets DraftKings points. If he's making the cut, it's because he's making lots of birdies. And once he does make the cut, you can expect him to post at least one of the rounds on the weekend where he's making lots of birdies because this guy's a birdie maker. So do like Wolff at $9,700. Little surprised that the ownership's down at 13.6%. I think that's where it should be actually, but I think people normally chase course history so much that I thought it would be a bit higher. But 13.6% is fair. We'll go ahead and match the field on Wolff at $9,700. If you're playing 3 lineups or so, not a guy I think you have to stuff in, but if you're a Matthew Wolff fan and you're a Matthew Wolff truther, then this is a good week to go to him. The next guy I like is below Wolff at $9,400. It's Lucas Glover. He's projected at 19.4% projected ownership. And Glover ranks 6th in our custom model, 2nd tee to green. He's 3rd in birdies or better gained, 18th off the tee, 32nd on the par 5s. I like Glover more than I like Wolff, honestly, and ownership seems to agree. You get a $300 discount to Wolff for a player who I just feel a little more comfortable with right now in rostering. Glover's been churning out solid performances in these stacked fields. So going to a weak field like this, $9,400, while it initially feels like an overpricing, really isn't. The 19.4% projected ownership, though, is a bit alarming. If it starts to climb, I'm inclined to get underweight to the field on Glover, not a full fade, but get underweight to the field. Hopefully it starts to drop. Luckily for you guys that are playing, just a handful of lineups, you can get to match the field on Glover. If you're playing like 5 lineups, certainly play one with Glover to match the field. If you're playing 3, I think you still stuff Glover in a lineup to get overweight to the field at 33%. So the ownership isn't too bad, but we're gonna have to monitor it. If it starts to tick into the low 20s to mid 20s, and he's battling Finau and Casey as the most owned player in this field, I'll like to step off some Lucas Glover at that point in time. The next player we like, and we liked him last week, and he performed for us last week, is Erik van Rooyen at $8,800, 18.9% projected ownership this week, though. So people looks like they want to ride the bit of recent form EVR showed last week. Again, he's a class player as far as his official world golf ranking goes. So at $8,800 to get a top 50, almost top 40 player in the world, I believe, seems like a bargain in the field this week, and the ownership is reflecting that. So a player like Glover, who I think the ownership is at a point where we're lucky that if we're playing a couple lineups, we can definitely stuff EVR into one, and we can at least match the field, or maybe be overweight to the field, depending on how many lineups you're playing. But if the ownership does start to climb, and again, if he gets into that Finau and Casey range, we're going to have to take a look at EVR and see if he still justifies that ownership. So the real big takeaway here is monitor ownership. Whatever tool you can use, go ahead and try to parse through Twitter to see what people are saying about folks. But whatever tools you can use to monitor ownership. And this week, as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and I'll post a late ownership article with some updated ownership, so you guys can get some looks at some updated ownership. Closer to lock. But you want to make sure you monitor projected ownership as best you can in any way that you can. The next mid-shelf play is Sam Burns at $8,500. He's at 17.2% projected ownership. And as I mentioned, it looks like this is where that ownership that's not going to the top range is going. People are really starting that Finau Casey range and then eating this mid $8,000 range alive with, well, and the mid nines. So Glover at 19.4% at 9,400, EVR at 18.9% at 8,800, and now Burns at 17.2% projected ownership at $8,500. This is where all that ownership's going to, and it's going to be reflected in the builds we see. Looks like a lot of people are going with that balanced sort of build this week, and I think going studs and duds or stars and scrubs is my preferred method this week, as a matter of fact. Not only viable, but my preferred method. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out this week. But Burns at $8,500, I understand why the ownership's there. He rates 12th in our custom model. He's 5th on the par 5s, 14th off the tee, 8th in driving distance, and 5th in birdies or better gained over the last 24 measured rounds in this field. So just stellar numbers for what we want to see. And yeah, it's really just the ownership that has me a bit scared, because ultimately he is Sam Burns, and Sam Burns is liable to miss a cut anywhere. I'll echo what I said about EVR and Glover. He's still at an ownership percentage at 17.2%, where we can get him into one lineup, right? We can match the field on Burns, especially given that we tightened our player pool this week elsewhere. So we can match the field on Burns this week at $8,500, even though if that ownership gets into the 20% range, I think he's over-owned at that point, and we might want to look to some pivots. And one of those pivots may be just putting a lot of faith in Luke List this week at $8,400, 11.7% projected ownership. And I love Luke List this week, which is really scary, loving Luke List. He ranks 13th in our custom model. He's 9th tee to green, 10th off the tee, 7th in driving distance, but 73rd in birdies or better gained. And a lot of that's just been the putter. Like, this guy just can't get putts to fall. And, as we mentioned, week in and week out, that's something that can turn at any moment in time. We know List has been in decent form. He got that Korn Ferry Tour win, and this being a weaker field, probably not significantly. I mean, it is significantly better than a Korn Ferry Tour event, or I should say, Korn Ferry Tour event. But it's not one of these super fields like we've seen in the last few weeks. So List really looks good to me, especially because his ownership's one of the ownerships in this range that actually comes in check, right? At that 11.7%. So really like Luke List this week. Hopefully he can turn that putter around, and if he does, he's a guy that has top 5 upside he's shown on the PGA Tour. So really liking Luke List at $8,400 this week. Also like the guy below him, a Stanford Cardinal alum like myself, Patrick Rogers, P-Rog, coming in at $8,200 price tag, 9.3% projected ownership. And Rogers is a guy who I feel like maybe is a little underrated off the tee. He can move it out there. So Rogers rating 19th in our custom model, 34th tee to green, 21st off the tee, 14th in driving distance, and 22nd in birdies or better gained. He's a guy who can get really, really, really scorching hot with the putter, can get just dynamite with that putter sometimes. So do like my fellow Stanford Cardinal, Patrick Rogers, this week. Did he play this event last year? He's a guy, he did not play this event last year. He's a guy who sometimes I like to see, if he's played events before, because I feel like he likes certain tracks. Not unlike I mentioned to Bubba, not to the same degree as Bubba. I feel like Rogers does like certain tracks more than others, and it shows in his tournament history. But this is going to be his first time around this course, but he can bomb it out there. He can turn that driver into a bit of a weapon if it's cooking, and he can make putts. If they start to fall, then you're going to feel confident with Rogers on the greens. So I like Rogers at $8,200, and at that projected ownership in the single digits finally on someone at 9.3%. Rogers at $8,200. Let's fire him up this week. And then we get to our main man at $8,000 flat. Once again, making an appearance. It is Max Homa, 13.8% projected ownership. I was hoping it would be lower and we would get more people to be scared off by the fact that this guy continues to miss the cut by one shot week in and week out. But based on what we're seeing in our model, the price is too low and the ownership's still too low. It's scary to have to go back to this guy, but I think we have to do it again this week, guys, and go back to him unafraid. Go back to him like you forget his name, like you've never played him before. He ranks 7th in our custom model, 3rd tee to green, 8th off the tee, 44th in driving distance, 29th birdies or better gained. I mean, play him. We're gonna stick with Homa until he gives us a reason not to, as far as the ball striking goes. And I know he's given us a reason not to, with respect to he's missed at the cut every time we've played him. But until he gives us a reason, until the ball striking slows down, let's keep firing him up and fire him up at will. As much as you want to play Homa this week, as much of him as you want to play, I'm right behind you because, man, ranking 7th in the model, he's going to pay off for us one of these weeks, guys. He's going to. So let's go back to him and hope it's this week that he does. He did make the cut here last year, but ended up with a T79. So very well could have been a miscut for him here last year with the new cut rules that we'll see this week, and that we've seen over the past year. The top 65 in ties, getting rid of the MDF. So yeah, with that being the case, and I believe Homa was MDF'd last year, so was cut after the 3rd round. But we're going back to him this week, guys. Don't be scared. Can't play scared in this game. So lots and lots of Homa again this week for us at $8,000 flat. Also like the guy priced right below Homa in Jonathan Vegas at $7,900, 9.7% projected ownership. He's a guy that can make tons of birdies. I mentioned a few years back there were multiple events where people defended their championship, and Vegas was actually one of those people at the RBC Canadians. So Vegas ranks 9th in our custom model. He's 15th tee to green, 13th on the par 5s, 1st off the tee, 20th in driving distance, and 8th in birdies or better gained. I mean, he's checking all the boxes here. And as I mentioned, being someone that's defended a PGA Tour title, he clearly has upside to win events, especially in a field this week. So love Vegas this week at that $7,900 price tag. Vegas is going to be his first time playing this event, so we'll see. It should be a fit for him. He can turn that driver into a weapon. He's great off the tee, as I mentioned, being first in this field over the last 24 measured rounds. So Jonathan Vegas at $7,900. Fire him up at will. 9.7% projected ownership is simply too low. Next guy I like at the same price, although I don't like him as much as Vegas. If you're not a Jonathan Vegas guy, or if you just end up having to shove both of these price ranges into your lineup, you can look to Straka Flocka Flame at $7,900, 11.5% projected ownership. And Straka's just been striking the ball well lately. He's a guy that's a pretty streaky ball striker, and it seems like he's in an upswing right now as he's been striking the ball well. Ranks 25th in our custom model. He's 7th on the par 5s, 34th off the tee, 35th in driving distance, and 25th in birdies or better gained. So yeah, pretty well-rounded game for what we want to see around here. I don't love the price tag. I think it's a little high, and I don't love the ownership either. I think it's a little high as well, but he does rate out pretty well in the model. And if you're a Straka Flocka Flame guy, then he's paid off in some DraftKings tournaments before. So I would have been remiss if I didn't mention Sepp Straka at $7,900. The next guy I like, and the last of our mid-shelf plays before we get to the SCHWAG bag, is Will Gordon at $7,700, 10.3% projected ownership. And Gordon, a newcomer to the PGA Tour, he ranks 14th in the model, 35th tee to green, 11th off the tee, 12th in driving distance, and 7th in birdies or better gained. He actually only has 22 measured rounds that we can go to. He couldn't go the full 24. But by all accounts, seems to be a guy who can gain off the tee in bunches, use his driver to his advantage significantly against the field. And given that this field, as I mentioned, is pretty weak, I feel oddly comfortable with Gordon at this $7,700 price tag, and actually prefer him to Sepp Straka, as our model does, being that Gordon ranks 14th and Straka ranks 25th. I would rather look to Gordon this week than Straka, and he's slightly lower owned, coming in at 10.3% compared to Straka's 11.5%. And you can leave that extra $200 on the table or use it to get up to another pricing tier for one of your other plays. So Will Gordon being the final mid-shelf play at $7,700. I like him. And then we can get into our SCHWAG bag. I have to light and finish this joint before we do. And get a little sip of water. And we only have 5 SCHWAG bag plays for you this week. No bombs this week, unfortunately. No one that we really liked down under the $6,500 mark. So no one at the bottom of the 6K range that we're going to play this week. But the guys that we like in the low 7s and in that upper 6 and mid 6 range, we're going to be playing quite a bit of them, certainly. And I wish Grayson Murray hadn't withdrawn because we would have been playing tons of him for sure. And hope Grayson Murray is doing well. It was a positive COVID test, the reason he withdrew. So hope he's in good health. Polish that puppy off. And then polish off the show for you guys. And then you guys can polish off the slate. Hopefully, did get some feedback that we did have some profits turn last week. So awesome to hear. That's the goal. Let's turn a profit each and every week. And then one of these weeks, we're going to get someone to break through and take that top prize. It's going to happen. Sneaking suspicion. So keep sticking with it here with us at HTG Pod. And we know we're going to get one of you guys through to win the million. So the first SCHWAG bag play, and he's a guy who came through for us a couple weeks ago at the workday. It's Charlie Hoffman. Chuck Hoffman's coming in at $7,400, 14.2% projected ownership. I don't love, but a guy that we can match the field on. And if his ownership starts to climb, he's a guy, if he gets into the 20% range, I say fade him. Hoffman is a very volatile player, and if he's not churning out a top 15 performance, then he's likely missing the cut. So Hoffman ranks 15th in our custom model, 13th tee to green, 9th on the par 5s, 12th in birdies or better gained. He's 68th in driving distance and 55th off the tee, so that's the concern. If he doesn't have a good driving week for himself, which leaves him maybe neutral or a little bit positive to the field as far as strokes gained go, he's not going to pay off this price tag. And at that ownership, it's tough. He's got so much upside because if he does have a good week driving the ball, he's going to pay off, much more than a $7,400 price tag. So right now, I like the idea of matching the field on Hoffman. If you're someone that likes to embrace volatile players, then he's someone I would go significantly overweight on, because if he's hitting the driver well, everything else absolutely checks out. So like Chuck Hoffman at $7,400. I also like Scott Piercy at $7,000. And admittedly, Piercy's been pretty trash lately. But at 3.2% projected ownership, I think he's worth a look here. He ranks 26th in our custom model. He's 17th off the tee, but 64th in driving distance. So he's not going to hit it far, but he can find a way to gain off the tee if he can keep the ball in the fairway. He's 30th in birdies or better gained. And tee to green, he's 69th. So not inspiring, but not terrible, right? And Piercy's a guy whose long-term form, if you look out past 24 rounds, is even better. So he's a little bit more of a class player long-term than he's shown as of recently. So in a field this week, he's pretty solid for everything we're looking for. So given that I believe he's a better player just as baseline than he's shown lately, I like looking to Scott Piercy at this really low ownership. I think it's a good buy low opportunity at Piercy at the $7,000 price tag, and especially at the 3.2% projected ownership. I also like the guy below Piercy, and it's a funny name to have to roster in PGA DFS, and I don't like doing it for that reason sometimes, but you got to listen to the numbers. It's Adam Schenk at $6,900, 3.8% projected ownership. And Shank's a guy who is just sneaky good off the tee. He doesn't hit it very far, but he's 7th in this field in strokes gained off the tee in the last 24 measured rounds. Ranks 28th in the custom model. He's 20th on the par 5s, 76th in birdies or better gained though. So another guy we just need to make some putts. If he has that driver working like it has been here recently for him, Shank at $6,900 is one of the better values in the $6,000 range, and the ownership's not even really following him. I'm not sure if that's just because the ownership's pretty low across the board in the $6,000 range. Let's take a look. Yeah, and it is. Apart from the gentleman we'll get to later, who I absolutely love. But yeah, these balanced lineups are really what people are going to this week, and I disagree. So let's take advantage. Let's go ahead and grab some guys at the top. Spread our ownership as much as we can in that middle range, and then let's really grab some guys at the bottom here. I like that strategy this week. So Adam Schenk at $6,900, 3.8% projected ownership. I like him as well this week. I like Joseph Bramlett at $6,800, 1% projected ownership. I don't love Bramlett this week, but man, he barely made the cut of players I was going to mention. And the player pool was already so small, I figured I would. He ranks 21st in the custom model. He's 38th tee to green, 40th on the par 5s, 41st off the tee, 47th in driving distance, and 37th in birdies or better gained. So he's just a little better than average everywhere. And you like to see that from the standpoint of being able to make a cut, because if one part of his game's off, he has the potential to make it up anywhere else. So for a guy priced down here, that's pretty unique, which at $6,800 to be able to say that about him, he's worth a look, and at 1% projected ownership. Now, Bramlett he's not someone, if you're playing a handful of lineups, you can definitely leave Joseph Bramlett out if you don't really, feel gravitated toward playing him. But he's someone that I thought I would mention for the reason that, any part of his game could bail him out to at least make a cut. And the last player in the SCHWAG bag, and we love him this week, be well over the field with our Stars and Scrubs build, and hopefully he comes through for us. It's Cameron Davis at $6,500, 9.6% projected ownership. And Davis ranks 5th in our custom model. He's 4th tee to green. He's 9th off the tee, 4th in driving distance, 9th in birdies or better gained. I mean, if he brings the driver that he's been swinging for a while now, Davis is significantly underpriced. He needs to get the putter to work for him. He needs to be decent around the green, and this golf course should work for him. As far as his tournament history goes, Davis was cut last year, only lost 0.35 strokes against the field though, so he was at least close. And I doubt he came in riding as good a form as he is with the driver right now. So absolutely love Davis at $6,500. He will be in a lot of our lineups, seeing as he's far and away my favorite play in the $6,000 range. If I'm trying to save some money, really wish Grayson Murray again didn't withdraw, because we would have loved him as well. He was actually rating 4th in our custom model. So, that ownership that would have been split between Davis and Murray will likely just mostly go to Davis now. So really hoping for a big week from Cam Davis. That's all I have for the end of the SCHWAG bag. Man, another awesome week ahead of us. Really appreciate you guys sticking with us here at the HTG Pod. I know we're close to a big time winner. Make sure you go check out Thrive Fantasy. Appreciate you supporting me. Please throw this video a like if you're watching the video, if you're watching or listening on the podcast. Really would appreciate if you go ahead and download the podcasts. Really helps me a lot. Leave a rating and review. And yeah, if you have any comments for me as far as how I can improve the show, definitely shoot them to me. And I'm out. Peace, y'all.